There are a few questions here in the chat box, Lumpur. I think Brother Estili, you may need to jump in to explain your question, but I'll read it out. And it reads like that, Lumpur. Bhante, is the reason because we are still full of defilements that we have not followed the precepts, and we are meditating, we have not overcome our hindrances. Conditions are not ideal for wisdom to arise, let alone to experience nibbana.
Well, we practice on different levels, and you just have to practice with where you're at. So the most basic fundamental level of practice is learning to live with other people without hurting them and hurting yourself. This is what we call morality, ethics. And so the Buddha gave the guidelines of the 5 precepts, and these are training rules that we can employ every day of our life to train in abandoning the worst of our intention, the intention to kill, steal, commit acts of sexual misconduct, to lie and abuse, to drink, take drugs and get drunk. These are the coarsest expressions of human defilements, greed, anger and delusion. So that's obviously the first place you have to practice. Many people who are not Buddhist by birth, as they become interested in the Buddhist teachings, they realize this is where they've got to put effort in, because they may have faith or they like to meditate, but then they're still having arguments with people, or they still kill bugs, or they're still stealing from others, or whatever. The coarsest expression of our mental defilements comes out in immoral or unethical behavior. And so we use the 5 precepts to bring our energy back in within ourselves, to be more careful what we say, what we do. The mental defilements are still conditioning our mind. They're coming up. When the conditions are right, they'll come up. We get angry, we have greed, we have lust, we have confusion that may be plaguing, causing us trouble in our mind, causing us suffering. But at least we're learning not to let it flow out to hurt others in our speech and our actions. So really, this is the foundation, the beginning of the practice. And people often misunderstand. They think, that's just the precepts, that's just morality. I want to learn the real Dhamma, the high Dhamma. But what are you developing as you keep the precepts? You're developing mindfulness, effort, patience, wisdom. You're developing the awareness to understand what is a wholesome intention, what is not, and the restraint to actually restrain your more unwholesome intentions. So it's a great achievement, any day in your life that you keep the 5 precepts purely or reasonably well. That's such a powerful, good karma, good conditioning factor in your life that will bring you happiness over and over again. It'll bring you a mind that's free from regret, at least for that day. And the more you do it over time, the more inner peace and well-being you'll feel, because regret, guilt starts to disappear as you keep the precepts. Then when you come to meditate, you'll find that it's easier to meditate on an object, because your precepts, you put effort into keeping them and using them to train the mind. Your mind is more naturally inclined towards wholesome mind states, rooted in kindness, compassion, mindfulness, wise reflection. So meditation gets easier. And as meditation gets easier and you're more familiar with it, your mind settles down more, your mindfulness improves. That feeds straight back into your precepts. You're more careful with what you say and you do, because you realize if you're not mindful, you cause yourself suffering, cause suffering to others. So they support each other. The meditation, the precepts support each other. And both of them combine to help make you wiser as a human being, because you understand what is suffering, what leads to suffering, whether it's on the level of just your behavior, your conduct, speech, actions, or on the more subtle level of the thoughts and the views you attach to internally that maybe no one else knows anything about. but you do. And your mindfulness and your wisdom is improving the more you practice the precepts, the more you practice mindfulness and meditation. So then you get clarity from that. And you can see greed, anger, delusion arising. You can see them as a cause of suffering. You have the strength of mind and the motivation to let them go. You notice when your precepts are not well, you're not well grounded in the precepts, it's hard, isn't it, to just see your mind, know your mind. It's hard because there's too much going on. We're too confused. Like before I used to meditate, I used to drink alcohol regularly. Then when I started meditating, I realized drinking and mindfulness practice, meditation practice, don't go well together, because when you drink, your mind becomes cloudy, your ability to concentrate is impaired, your ability to think straight and understand things is impaired. So it was a no-brainer as I started meditating to give up drinking. It wasn't easy. I had to determine to give it up, and that's the way precepts help you. You're training yourself to give up certain aspects of your conduct that are reflecting the defilements or coming from the mental defilements. And then after a while, it becomes natural. So now I've never had the thought to drink or take drugs. You don't even have the thought. It's not a problem for me now because I've practiced and trained to the point where that's finished. The mind doesn't want to do that. It just has no wish, no interest to get intoxicated. Even though I can appreciate when people are stressed, they like to drink and it relaxes them. I understand that. But I can find relaxed happiness in meditation and the Dhamma. And I can see the harm, the disadvantages of using alcohol or drugs for that purpose. So I don't have any desire for drink or drugs. That's the result of practicing precepts in conjunction with meditation. After a while, you just naturally want to keep precepts. That keeps the worst aspects of your mental defilements in check and helps you to gradually, on the inside, remove them. It may take a while, of course. It may take a whole lifetime. It doesn't matter how long it will take. But if you're doing it, you're going in the right direction.
Anyone's got any questions to ask Lumpur? Please feel free to click on the raise hand button or type in the chat box. Whilst waiting, Lumpur, I have a question, and this question pertains to these two posters that you recently circulated. And on the left, the quote reads, "Every moment we bring up a skillful intention in our mind is a moment of merit." The right poster reads, "Making merit has to improve the quality of your mind for it to be merit." Could you please expound a little bit on these two quotations?
Right. Well, it's just pointing to the importance of our mental states, our thoughts and intentions in the process of making merit. Merit literally means the goodness of mind, and that has to come from good intentions, setting your mind up in the right way. Because in life, we're always looking on the more superficial aspect of things. So people say, I'm going to the temple to make merit. And they may make some food or get a donation together, and they go to the temple or the monastery or somewhere to make merit. But as they're doing that, if they're not looking at their mind or not watching over their mind or don't understand the heart of making merit, they might actually get irritated in the process of doing that and going to the temple. Maybe they'll have an argument with someone on the way. Maybe at the temple they'll feel bored or frustrated. They may physically be taking part in what we call merit making, a ceremony, a ritual, an activity, but their mind may be in a very unwholesome place. So the true merit comes from maintaining skillful intentions as you do it. So I say you practice some act of generosity or kindness. You're watching over your mind during the beginning, the middle, and the end of that action. For it really to be merit, you have to do that. If you do it in a casual way, very quickly you might get bored or distracted. So you see, some people come to the temple and they're making merit, they're doing something good, making offerings on behalf of their dead relative, for example. And the monks are chanting and they're sitting there and they start looking around or talking to their friend. And their mind is not on the purpose of why they came to the monastery, why they're with, what they're doing at that moment. They're not thinking of their relative. They're just, talking to their friend, looking out of the window, thinking about their work or whatever. So the merit made is still made, perhaps, if they've made some kind of donation, offered food or money or something. There's still some merit made, but it's not as powerful or as good as it could be. And the reason we practice merit regularly is because you're constantly bringing up these skillful intentions. You're training yourself, and it has this cleansing effect. So if you're bringing out a thought of kindness and putting it into action, doing something out of kindness, you're naturally letting go of anger, selfishness, ill will at that moment, because you can't have two things in your mind at the same time. So if you keep practicing making merit or developing meritorious action, your mind should improve, your life should improve, your sense of well-being and happiness should improve. It's just a natural result of it. But if your mind is not improving, maybe there's something wrong there internally. Maybe on the outside you go to the temple to meditate, listen to Dhamma, or make offerings, but maybe you're there with a lot of anger or jealousy. These other defilements can come into our merit making and limit it, or even make us lose all the merit, in the sense that we lose all the wholesomeness and the happiness of that action because we've fallen into some form of mental defilement. So just observing your mind improve through merit making should help you understand this point. And you see people who do it a lot, they find a lot of joy in doing good things, whether it's helping others, making donations, meditating, keeping the precepts. They find joy in that. They find joy in associating with other people who make merit and are doing wholesome things. So they find happiness, their mind improves from that. It's a very nourishing quality, and it cleanses you of the opposite, greed, anger, and delusion. So keep observing your mind as you make merit. You don't let your mind wander, don't get caught into the anger and the jealousy. When you notice those qualities come up, let them go and bring your mind back to the merit and the wholesome intention.
Sadhu Nampa. Are there questions from the floor? Anyone? Oh, Subhana. Okay. Subhana, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, Ajahn, can you hear me?
Yes,
hello?
I can.
Okay, Ajahn, I'd like to ask a question on anger. I have come across a quote by Ajahn Chah saying that anger is not belong to us. We have to let it go. And anger is just a deception. But at times when we are angry, we just can't really control it. And sometimes it's like we are just putting the anger aside. And when it comes a time, it will just blow up. So how do we really can let go of the anger? Because sometimes when we are angry at someone, okay, we just try to say, okay, not to be angry, let it go, you see. Then another time we see this person again, we also feel the anger is there. Okay, so we're just like something like pushing it to a side, until one day when we cannot control it, it will just burst up. So what should we do? How should we let the anger go? Thank you, Ajahn.
Very good question, and I sympathize with you. I think everybody has the same sort of experience. You have to make it a project, like other things in life. It's a project that's important to you. I want to learn about anger. I want to learn how it arises, how to manage it, restrain it, and how to abandon it. And you make that a project. It's something important in your life. That's what Dhamma practice is. And working with anger, letting go of anger is one part of that. And there's many techniques, strategies that we can employ to help. So one thing I found, especially when I was a new monk and I had a lot of untamed aversion and ill will coming up because I was suddenly, in a situation living in the forest with a lot of rules and regulations, it's quite natural you experience some anger coming up towards other people, towards yourself, towards mosquitoes or the world, whatever it may be. One thing I found helpful was if there was a recurring kind of anger that I noticed to do with a person or a regular situation I was experiencing, to wait for the time when I'm not angry and really think it through. And that time when you're feeling calm, steady, start asking yourself questions and investigating it. Where is this coming from? Because often we're not very clear why we're getting angry. We know we're getting angry, but we don't know where it's coming from, why, and what's prompting it. And of course, much anger is coming from frustration. You have a desire that is frustrated. We're not getting what we want. There's something you want, you're not getting it. So if it's something you want that's involved with another person, then we may get angry with them because we see them as not giving us what we want or blocking our happiness in some way. It's a mosquito, they're not giving us what we want. What we want is to be able to sit peacefully, but they're coming and bothering us. Or it may be some disappointment. We wanted something in our life and we didn't get it, so then we get angry. So that's something to investigate. Sit down, any time when you're feeling calm, you've got a few moments to spare. Don't get your phone out. Just sit and ask yourself, when was the last time I got angry? What happened? Why am I getting so angry over this issue, this problem? Use your time wisely like that. And you can often get quite quick results, understanding, that there's the real root of the problem is because you want something, you're attached to something, and so it's constantly triggering anger. And once you understand it, then you're alert to it. When you're back in that situation or with that person again, you know the problem, so you're already prepared to deal with it, and maybe you start employing more awareness to avoid falling into anger before it's even arisen. Of course, you'll also hear the teaching we have to develop loving kindness, forgiveness, compassion. Of course, those are also qualities we're focusing on. But you also need to understand anger more as an experience. And all our mental states, our moods, our experiences, our feelings, they have causes. And we have choices. So when you're attached to something and you don't get what you want, or you get what you don't want, there'll be feelings of pain, displeasure coming up, unpleasant feelings arising. Could be just mental, could be physical as well. You want to develop an awareness around that, how feeling triggers negative thoughts, or what we call anger. So if there's a recurring situation, you can start investigating that and see, this is what you're doing in meditation as well. As when you sit meditation, maybe you regularly have some pain and you notice how you get aversion to that pain. So you start establishing awareness and maybe seeing pain as a kind of feeling, asking questions about it, learning about it. You might find after a while you can tolerate a lot more pain and be at peace with pain. The feeling may still be there, but what you're doing is educating your mind, changing your attitude towards it, and removing the part of the suffering that is unnecessary and doesn't have to be there in your mind. What we call the second arrow. Say you're sitting meditation, you get a painful feeling. That's the first arrow. And then the second arrow is your reaction to it and the aversion. And I hate this, I don't want this. So you learn a lot from your own personal meditation. And then when you go out into the world and you face traffic jams and uncooperative people and all kinds of situations that are not what you want, and they're stimulating anger and aversion, what you've learned in your meditation you can now apply. So you might notice you're at work and there's some person who makes you angry. You say, well, what's going on? Now you can investigate and say, well, when I see them already, I have a feeling of tension. Maybe it's some fear based on that person because we feel they're powerful or they have some power over us, some authority. Maybe it's jealousy. You think you're better than them, know better than them. So when you see them, it already brings up that reaction. you're starting to learn about the whole experience based on this strategy of thinking things through, trying to understand, bringing up the awareness, seeing where the anger begins in your experience. And usually it's going to be a feeling, isn't it? Even something as small as a mosquito, you know, you hear the sound of the mosquito buzzing, or you feel the itch on your skin. And because it's happened many times before, maybe there's immediate anger. Oh, not this again, another mosquito, and your mind falls into the negativity. If you've got no sila, you'll squash the mosquito. If you've got sila, you may not squash the mosquito, but you may still have to deal with the aversion. And you have to think it through. Oh, what's going on here? You hear the sound and the mind immediately reacts with aversion. If I can have enough mindfulness just to hear the sound, know that sound, know it's a mosquito, but let go at that point, my mind doesn't have to go into anger. Or you hear the words of that person in your workplace who you always get angry with, or someone at home could be. You hear the words, but now you're working on your aversion training, so you hear the words and you know it's bringing some tension, but you establish mindfulness in that, at that point. You just let that tension or the painful feeling drop, and you don't go into the negativity, the thinking, the mood. This is what we have to do. We have to learn from our experience. This is what the Buddha was encouraging us to do. Find out about it and use the teachings he gave us. Use the practice of mindfulness, investigation of the Dhamma, seeing the impermanent nature of feelings and thoughts. Also bringing up loving kindness, which is a much better place to be in your mind. When you have a thought of kindness, tolerance, you feel better. So developing that more and more to counter the habit of anger and negativity. So taking it all as a project is something we're going to learn from and understand better, and it may take time, but it doesn't matter. You just put that effort in and you will understand more about anger, where it comes from, how to let go of it.
That advice would also be appropriate if we feel a sense of betrayal from people that are close to us. Would you also say that this is also as a result of individual person's karma? And how should one, overcome this uneasy feeling where there is a betrayal in a relationship?
Of course, it's can be very traumatic, very lead to a lot of sadness or aversion as well. Particularly if it's someone you've worked with or lived with or known for a long time, and then you realize they weren't being honest with you, or behind your back they were, one person to your face, and then behind your back they were a different kind of person. All these situations will be very draining and very disappointing for us. But the practice doesn't change. It just means we have to up our game. When you meet with a situation where you've been betrayed and that's coming up, you have to still apply mindfulness, forgiveness, letting go. And you just have to work harder because you maybe invested more attachment in that relationship. So when it crumbles through betrayal, that relationship fails, or it's no longer the same anymore, then the meaning to our mind and our emotions is more. So we have to work harder to deal with that. But all the Buddhist teachings are there to help us. We've got a teaching to deal with everything. So reflecting on impermanence, things change, people change, situations change, and you have to accept that. You can't, it's deluded to think everything is going to be the same. So you have a friend or a work colleague, it's just going to be the same, always respect you, always treat you well, always be trustworthy from now for eternity. That's not realistic. You have to accept impermanence. People change. Sometimes it's because of us, what we've said and done. Sometimes nothing to do with us, it's their own karma, and they're changing for their own reasons, or reasons unconnected to us. So it's hard to generalize, but the one thing that you can use very quickly to help you deal with situations like this is it's uncertain, it's not sure. And you wish people well. So say someone's betrayed you, what do you want? Do you want them to be punished and destroyed and in pain and suffering, which is only going to come back on you because they're going to be angrier and worse than before and maybe seek revenge on you? Or do you want that person who's betrayed you to improve in their state of mind and in their behaviors? So even if you personally have nothing more to do with them, they become a better person for the world. They go on to experience happiness. They can help other people. What do you really want from that person? So we're having to learn to reflect on things and see where we can let go of our own kilesas, greed, anger, and delusion, where we can accept the truth of things. So if someone has betrayed you and left your life, just accept it. Things are impermanent. We're all going to die anyway, aren't we? Even the best person dies, even the worst person dies. So never let your mind stray too far from impermanence. And it's nice when we have good friends and people who help us and they stay with us. Of course, that's what we want. That's a nice thing in life. That's a supportive, good thing in our life. But if it changes, you have to accept that and just accept that it's impermanent. Maybe that person, I didn't know them as well as I thought I did, or I didn't have a strong connection as much as I thought I did. Life is impermanent, and unfortunately some of the lessons we learn are quite painful, and we have to grow up and become wiser through these lessons.
So there is a follow-up question. As someone here listening to the advice, this person has got a question. That is, whilst we're contemplating and managing our own anger, if we are a victim of abuse, I'm not sure what sort of abuse, it could be physical, it could be verbal, I'm not sure. So this person is asking, should we seek justice instead of being a doormat and keep quiet? Thank you.
Well, again, it's difficult to generalize. Every situation, every context is different. So we do have mechanisms for seeking justice in the world, and that's not necessarily outside of Buddhist practice. We have the law of the land, we have social norms, cultural norms where, things that are seen as good and bad, people generally see one kind of behavior as good, one kind as bad. We have law, we have civil law, criminal law, all kinds of things that do sometimes help us get justice. Sometimes it is good to be a doormat as well, though. It's hard to generalize. Being a doormat can be quite good for us to just let go and realize, I'm not the number one person in the world. I'm not the most superior being here. Maybe I've hurt a lot of people in the past or done things that have brought this situation about where I'm becoming the doormat. So maybe I can use it to my advantage and use it as a situation to let go of my pride, my arrogance, my ego. Of course, it's not a situation you want or seek out, but if it happens, and it generally does happen to almost everyone in life sooner or later, it's just one of what we call the worldly winds. You don't always get praise, you get blame as well. You don't always get held up on a pedestal. You also get used as a doormat as well. They come together. There's not one without the other. But the way the Buddha taught is, use these things, these experiences to learn about attachment. And maybe being a doormat for a while can really teach you about your own attachment, your own anger. Going back to the question on anger, if someone treats you as a doormat, sure, we can say it's a bad thing. They're not doing the right thing. They're bullying you, abusing you, taking advantage of you. It's not a good thing. But if your life has come to a point where that's happening, of course, you have the right to try and end that situation, get out of it, seek justice. But at the same time, use it to teach yourself to let go. And maybe that person who treats you as a doormat will actually help you to get closer to Nibbana, because they're helping you see your attachment to your sense of self, your reactions of anger, disappointment, despair coming up. And then you can go beyond them if you're practicing with it, using that situation to learn from, to gain wisdom, gain understanding. As I said, it's not a situation you want or wish on anyone, but if it happens, just use it. As far as seeking redress or justice, you have to be careful a little bit, because you often, it's an imperfect world and you don't always get what you want in life. And the justice system, or seeking any kind of justice, retribution, it's so easily that we fall prey to our own desires and aversions and wanting to get back, the desire for revenge or to hurt someone else. It's very difficult to avoid that happening. So be careful, be cautious. Don't just immediately sue them when they do something that you felt you've been wrong. I'm going to sue you. Usually it's people who do that. They want justice straight away. They often have a lot of anger and a lot of suffering, a lot of disappointment. As they say, in any legal battle, the lawyers win, the clients tend to lose because they pay all the money and suffer with the whole situation. So if you can let go without seeking any kind of justice, that might be the ideal. We're generalizing here again, but see if you can do that first before you go to the law, go to the authorities, go to whoever it is. Can you let go on your own first? Maybe that's a good starting point. If the situation persists, well, of course, it depends on whether it's domestic abuse or workplace abuse. Well, maybe you do have to do things to protect yourself. And that's not necessarily wrong, but also work on letting go of your own reactions of anger, hatred. Many, many stories in Buddhism that help us with this. So one that I like to remember is in Bodh Gaya, India, where the Bodhi Tree is. When the British there were running India, they did a lot of bad, I know, but they also did some good in that they were into history. British people tend to be quite into history, and so they discovered or rediscovered and renovated a lot of the Buddhist sites and kind of cleared them up and made them places you could visit. And so they did that at Bodh Gaya, and they helped to give permission for Sri Lankan monks to set up the Mahabodhi temple at the Bodhi Tree and sort of begin what we now know to be, the whole practice of going on pilgrimage to the Bodhi Tree. And nowadays, there's a whole town has grown up and there's many temples, but it began as a couple of Sri Lankan monks being invited to stay there. And of course, being the first monks to arrive there, the locals, who were not Buddhists, they're from different religions, and they had their own invested interest in the place. They didn't want to see monks there. Some local big guy thought, I'm going to get rid of the monks. We don't want Buddhists coming in, taking over our place. And, for whatever reasons, wanted to teach the monks a lesson, get rid of them. So he sent his bully boys in to teach them a lesson, beat them up physically, beat them to a pulp. They didn't kill them, but they beat them to a pulp. So the British found out about this, and they're the ones in charge, the police, the army. So they came to see the monks, and they were very sad. These monks had been hurt because they know they're monks. Monks are non-violent. So to be someone to physically attack monks is a pretty coarse, gross kind of thing. So they said, we're going to get these people who've done this. We're going to seek justice for you. We're going to get them and punish them for their crimes. And the monks said, no, please don't do that. We're monks. We're going to practice forgiveness and let go of this and move on. Do not pursue this as a crime. Just leave it. And the British Army was so impressed. This news went all around India. They're talking about it, and it even got back to the UK, London. And this is like over 100 years ago, a long time ago. So transport communication was very slow, but it got back to London, and they put it in the newspaper that these Buddhist monks are so inspiring because they don't just preach Dhamma and preach forgiveness and compassion, they actually practice it. So there's always that option. I know it's not the easy option, but sometimes we can also just practice letting go, forgiveness, not seeking justice, retribution in a situation. And it can be inspiring, it can be good for our practice, it can be good for others. And sometimes you can win people over. Again, it depends on the situation, but it's one option.
Dr. Lampor, with permission to Lampor, if I may also add on to the person who's asking this question, if you are facing any physical or domestic abuse, and if you are a female, a mother or so, and if you need to speak to somebody, reach out to your relatives, your friends, speak to them about it. If not, give me a call, and let's see how we can help you. Not out to seek justice, but really to see how we could help you.
Of course, great words of wisdom there. We can seek help and advice always in different situations.
That there are no more questions from the floor, Lampor. And I know that you had a very, very, very long day since 4 a.m. this morning. You have been on 3 or 4 Zoom sessions already this today on a Sunday. And we are all very eternally grateful for your words of wisdom tonight as we close the evening with you on this very, very auspicious 12th month of 2021. So thank you so much, Lampor, and maybe we will seek permission to just close the session and wish you well and have a good rest.
Okay, thank you for listening, and I wish you all well. May you all be safe and happy.